If you really want to crack a company, the best way to do it is you look at the job description of the company. We'll go through how to do it, identify the skills, customize your resume for the skills of that company. So every resume is going to be customized for a specific company. It cannot be a generic resume for a sector or a generic resume for all companies. That model does not work. And if you know how bad the situation is this year, like I am consulting a bunch of IITs where even in computer science, electrical engineering, the placement rates are maybe 20 to 30%. Like a majority of students are not getting jobs. And I give them the same feedback. The more you customize your resume, the higher your chances of getting a job. Okay. So that's point one. But let's jump into the second piece, which is how do you customize, right? Where do you begin? So there's something called job descriptions or JDs. One of the most important takeaways from the conversation is this idea of JDs. Okay. So what JDs means is that you bring a certain set of skills to the table. The company wants a certain set of skills. For example, let's assume that Vibin here is a student. Vibin has a bunch of skills as a student, and Google has a set of expectations for a software engineer, right? But there's a high chance that what Vibin has and what Google needs may not necessarily match. So that is called the gap. And this is the gap you have to be aware of, and this is what you have to cover in your resume. Okay. It's not. So, guys, I think my slide is not moving, so I'm gonna go back and check what's happening. Give me a second. Uh, are you guys able to see my screen move? Okay, great. So, folks, I was talking about the fact that you bring a certain set of skills to the table. The company needs a certain set of skills, but there's always going to be a gap. So, this gap is what you have to cover in your resume. Okay. There is nobody in any IIT I've seen so far who's like a perfect fit for a company they're applying for. Everybody has a gap. When I was recruiting at Harvard Business School, at Stanford, Wharton for product management roles, same problem, right? Students think they're good, but they don't exactly match the skills the company needs. So there's always a gap. This gap, you can do this identification using the job description or the JD. So this is how you download the job description of the company. So for example, if you're applying for a software engineer job at Google, go to careers.google.com, go to the career side of the company. Under the career side, there'll be an option to search for jobs. So search for software engineer, and you will get a list of software engineering roles open in Google. So look at the software engineering JD. Under that, there's going to be skills, qualifications, expectations. So look at all of that, download it, and that really is what you're going to use to customize your resume. If you cannot find the company job description on the company website, you can do a Google search and find it. You can find it on Glassdoor. You can do some Google specific searches, customize your searches, and find it. Okay. So you need to have a job description for the company you're applying for. Without this, your resume will not make any sense. Most resumes will list down skills under three categories. The first category is technical skills. So most of you studying at IITs learn a lot of technical skills. So that's granted that you guys have the skills, but what companies also look for on top of technical skills is business skills and people skills. So business skills are skills which can be applied across companies. Not like technical skills is going to be more specific to Google, but business skills are those which you can apply to any software engineering job, right? And then you're going to find people skills which are more team skills, communication skills, anything linked to people. So those are some people skills which are also out there. So most interviews will try to judge you by technical, business, and people skills, and this is what you will have to reflect in the job description. So why don't we jump in into doing an example, right? Like I said earlier, I don't want this to be a one-way monologue from my end. So let's do this. McKinsey. I pulled up this job description from the McKinsey website. So this is the McKinsey website, and you see a bunch of information here. This is part of the job description. Okay. So the job right now is, let's go in and try to identify what are some of the technical skills, what are some of the business skills, what are some of the people skills which McKinsey wants. Okay. So maybe I'll give you maybe a couple of seconds just to have a quick look at this job description, and then I'm going to jump in and share some thoughts about how to classify these skills. So let's give you guys maybe 15 seconds just to review this quickly, what this means. To a team skill or a people skill. It talks about gathering and analyzing information, formulating and testing hypotheses, developing and communicating recommendations. These are all part of data analysis skills. So this is part of business skills. There's something called presentation skills, and you'll have to implement recommendations. So presentation skills is a part of people skills. Implementing recommendations is also part of people skills. The second paragraph, there's probably not too much for you to take away. It speaks about what McKinsey has to offer to you. The last paragraph is important because it talks about specialized knowledge and people who have very broad focus. And they're saying that they don't need specific industry or functional expertise. So this talks about a need for maybe some domain specific knowledge. So this is the technical skills they're looking for. Okay, so if I look at this description of junior associate at McKinsey, which you guys will be applying for. Oh, is it blocking? Okay. So if you look at this McKinsey job description, right, they really are looking for people who, they don't even say what domain skills they look for. So it's pretty much maybe a little bit of data skills, but that is it. But everything is basically down to communication skills, people skills, team skills, and business skills. So very little of technical skills. So I would expect McKinsey to pretty much recruit across j- all branches, right? They don't care whether you're from computer science, whether you're from naval architecture, whether you're from aerospace engineering or chemical engineering. As long as you're good in communication, good in business skills, they'll hire you. Okay. So McKinsey is going to open up to all branches. They don't care about which branch. And you already know what they're looking for. So when you're writing a McKinsey resume, you're going to play up to your team skills. You're going to play up to your presentation skills and your data analysis skills. So I'll take a small detour and also walk you guys through what this means. So when you list down the skills required by the company, right? List down the type of skills, the specific name of the skills, and try to do a self-rating. This is something I always recommend to students because not everyone has the skills they want, right? So the expected skill is what the company wants. And try to guess, do they want a basic skill, intermediate skill, or advanced skill? And ask yourself, do you have these skills? If there's a huge gap between what the company wants and what you have to offer, that company is not for you. Okay, so I would say there should be at least a 70% match between the skills the company wants and between the skills you have to offer. Only then should you be applying to the company. If there's not enough of a match, either you prepare in advance from your second year of your undergrad, that you begin preparing for it, or if you have no time to prepare, then maybe that company is not for you. Okay, so I'm just trying to mention that classify the skills under three categories called basic, intermediate, advanced, and try to review your own skills. And this is a technique which will help you not just when searching for jobs, but when you're trying for promotions, when you enter a company. You can always use this mapping of skills and do a self rating to see how good you are. Let's maybe jump to Texas Instruments. I think that's another job. So maybe Vibin, can you just maybe talk a little bit about this in terms of what Texas Instruments wants and give some guidance?
So, folks, very similar. Only thing is, it's going to be a core job versus what's considered a
Hold
non-core
on,
job.
hold on. Can I take over because I think there's a lot of echo.
Okay.
So, folks, Texas Instruments has a list of skills listed out here. And what I want to show to you is that under skills, there's actually a bunch of things you can look at. So, for example, there's something on programming and scripting skills, which is a technical skills. There's something about machine learning, quantization algorithms, machine learning frameworks, embedded systems. These are all hardcore technical skills which Texas Instruments wants. But on top of it, they also want strong communication and writing skills. Documentation and writing skills are very similar to each other. So if I look at Texas Instruments, what I need to emphasize in my resume is programming skills, machine learning skills. Written machine learning twice, so they're definitely looking for more machine learning skills than even programming skills. Some knowledge of embedded systems is also going to help you, and it's not just technical skills. You also want communication, documentation, and writing skills. Let's look at Deloitte. So again, Deloitte Consulting comes to a bunch of IITs. I think they also come to IIT Roorkee. So this is their job description. This is what they're looking for. Let's again jump a little deep into what does it mean to you and what you should cover in your resume. So this is what I've highlighted. It talks about delivering high quality services and timely responses. Timely responses basically means that when the customer asks you a question, you have to respond immediately. Even if you're in another end of the world, you have to respond immediately. That means that basically you'll have to check your phones every 5 minutes. If there's a question, you have to immediately give an answer. Okay, so that basically what it means. You have to be on call 24/7. That's really what they're trying to tell you. And if you're a person who wants like a healthy work-life balance, maybe Deloitte is not for you. It talks about research and drafting reports under the guidance of senior staff. So what the recruiter wants to say through this line is that you will have a team of people who will be giving you commands and orders to work on projects and create PowerPoint presentations, and you have to create it. You cannot run and create something by yourself. You'll have clear guidance coming in from senior staff, and you have to listen to them. Okay, so working under people is a good skill to have at Deloitte. Working collaboratively with cross-functional teams, it's a team skill which is important there. Analyzing data is again something which Deloitte values. Problem solving skills, they value that a lot. Analytical skills, problem solving, we see that under requirements. That is something they value. They also talk about a fast moving, challenging environment. So, what does fast moving, challenging mean? So, I would say that fast moving and challenging is nothing but the company is going to throw work at you, hell lot of work at you, and you have to do all the work. So, if you feel that, again, you are a person who likes work life balance, you want to come to work at 8, leave at 5, and do something else after going home, Deloitte is probably not that place for you, right? It's going to be challenging, fast paced, working hard. They also mention working hard, right? So you have to work very, very hard. They want you to be self motivated. Excellent communication skills. They want good fluency in English, both oral and written. Okay, so written skills, very important. Oral skills are also important. So these are some of the skills Deloitte is looking for. So there's a difference between how you would customize your resume for McKinsey versus how you'll customize your resume for Deloitte. Deloitte is all about working hard, working under a team, and McKinsey is all about teamwork and collaboration, right? So McKinsey would probably want you to be more independent than Deloitte. So you'll have to write in such a way that you deliver a different message to McKinsey versus a different message to Deloitte when it comes to writing your resumes. So I'm gonna talk a couple of things here. I'm not able to unmute myself and let Vibin continue, so I'll keep talking for the time being and then pass it over to him. So what's the goal of a resume, right? From my perspective, from a recruiter's perspective, what is it I'm looking for? So I really want to get somebody's attention in maybe 10 seconds. An average recruiter spends around 7 to 10 seconds looking at a resume. So if you don't grab their attention, then you're going to lose them. So it should look very neat, clean, without any spelling mistakes, without any formatting mistakes. So these are absolutely important. Okay, this is like ground zero. If you make spelling mistakes and grammatical errors, your resume will straight go to the trash can. Nobody's going to read that. So make sure you do a Microsoft Word check and also use Grammarly to do a spell check on your resume. Also use a OpenAI, right, or ChatGPT to do a resume check because you want your resume to look perfect. Okay, so that's one thing. Number one thing, don't make any mistakes. Second thing is that always talk about skills. Don't always talk about how awesome you are, right? They don't care about how awesome you are. The only thing a company looks for is, do your skills match the skills as identified in the job description? That's the only thing a company looks for. They don't care about anything about you. For example, don't write stuff like, hey, I've had a lot of personal problems at home and I desperately want the job. They don't care. They don't care about how desperate you are. All they care about is, do your skills match the company expectations? Try to use metrics and numbers whenever you talk about skills. Use a bullet point and always begin with the action verb. We'll get into the details, but basically it begins with the action verb and it gets into what change you made in the company, not about what you worked on. It's about how much impact you created, and you talk the language in numbers to drive home a sweet and concise message. Typically, a resume takes maybe around 15 to 20 revisions to get ready. So, uh, you may probably spend 4 or 5 hours to create one resume, but that's only a first revision, and you will have multiple versions of it. So, I've seen that most people take 10 to 15 revisions, and don't worry, because you have to spend around 20 to 30 hours on your resume before it becomes perfect, before when you get feedback, when you customize it, and so on. So, lifelong, you'll be working with resumes, and this will be a problem you'll always encounter. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to share an example of a good resume, just to give you guys a glimpse of what are some of the things a recruiter looks for. So I know you guys have your own campus recruiting template, so I'm not going to talk about the first half of this. I'm going to talk about industrial experience and the way the industrial experience is listed. For example, this person has worked in Larsen and Toubro automation. So let's see how the person described their work, right? So do you see here that it always begins with something like deployed, proposed, and so on? So it's basically, this is called an action verb. So use a verb. You don't begin with I did, right? That's completely wrong. You always begin with action verb. You talk about the details of what you did. So begin with action verb, talk about the exact details of what you did, and add a metric in terms of what is it impact you created. It could be cost savings, it could be productivity enhancement, it could be you increase efficiency. So you could talk about cost savings in lakhs, you can talk about efficiency in terms of percentage numbers, you could talk about productivity increase, you could talk about manpower decrease. There are a lot of ways to measure productivity, right? So you need to mention at least one point for each bullet point you have out there. Okay, one metric for each bullet point. Let's look at this point here. Proposed an automated planarity measurement system based on Chebyshev distance criteria. So they are getting into technical details. As a recruiter, I love it. And it also says that there's a cost saving of 15 lakhs. And I love this. When I read this, I'm like, okay, this person creates a lot of value for the company. It's not just about doing the task, but how does it help the company, right? That is what I want to know. And ideally, a metric should help me there. Let's look at the second page of the resume. So ideally, a resume should only be one page. Anybody with less than 10 years of work experience should stick to one page maximum. Uh, if you've done too many things, you should go to 2 pages. But personally, I've never seen a student. And I came to IIT Roorkee, Vibin and I came to IIT Roorkee last year. We met probably around 200 to 300 students. I did not see even one student whose resume had to go to 2 pages. You can cut it down to one page. That's definitely possible. Suppose a person has not done industrial experience, right? They can also talk about some of the project experience, some of the work they've done with professors. So in this case, the person has worked with the professor on statistical process capability analysis, right? So they talk about the work they did and the fact that they were able to decrease breakdown frequency by 10%. So that's a big deal, right? I want to see the impact they created. Likewise, they talk about studying leakage cost and reducing overall processing cost by 20%. So metrics are very important, and there's always an action verb at the beginning of each verb, each bullet point. On top of it, if the person doesn't have enough industry experience, even if you have volunteer experience, you can put it up there. For example, if you supervise some COVID relief work, you work for NGO, non-profit, it's okay to put it there. But you also need to add numbers. So in this case, the person did COVID relief work for 200 low-income families, led a team of 10 members. Fantastic. That shows that the person has leadership potential and improve the efficiency of processes by 20%. So as you read that, I'm very curious to meet this person and see how did you improve the efficiency of NGO effort by 20%. I want to know more. So if I'm McKinsey, there's a high chance I'll call this person for an interview, because this person is very numbers oriented, very data driven, and looks like he's a leader, right? He leads a team of people. I'm just very impressed by this person. Okay, so that's an example I wanted to share about what are some of the things people write on the resume. Uh, this template, this Microsoft Word template, I will share on my Career Bold WhatsApp group. So feel free to message me or email me. My email is Vinod Arvind Dakshin, first name, last name, Vinod Arvind Dakshin at iitpkd.ac.in. Uh, but for your campus recruiting, you have to use a campus format. Okay, so strictly use that format. Uh, I talked about these points. Never begin with I in your bullet points. Always begin with action verb. And there's a list of action verbs. I'm going to send this PowerPoint to you, but there's around 200 power action verbs you can use on your resume. Use this carefully to optimize your resume. I will send all this words to you in my WhatsApp group. So do join my WhatsApp group. And uh, what we are going to do is I'm going to wind down my presentation now. I'm going to pass it over to Vibin. So what we are going to do is we will talk about maybe two resumes which were given to us by the Career Development Center. We'll begin there, and then we'll talk about all the others who have also reached out to us for resume feedback. We'll do whatever we can till 11:30, but I know there are probably like some 50 to 60 people who have given us their resume for feedback. We will not be able to evaluate every single resume. So what we're going to do is Vibin is going to create a self-evaluation form, and he's going to put it up on WhatsApp. So do join our WhatsApp group, do the self-evaluation yourself, and in case you still have questions, we'll maybe talk again next week or so. So talk to CDC team. We'll again set up one more follow-up call where we'll get into details for those people who for whom the self-evaluation is not enough and they want more feedback. So you do your own evaluation, then we can also help you out. Okay. So this is probably where we are going to stop. So this is a WhatsApp group. Do join the WhatsApp group for those who joined the conversation late. And I'm going to pass it over to Vibin to take over the conversation from here.
Folks, I just wanted to know if is any questions from anyone over here? Quick questions that we can take before we do the resume evaluation. Deafening silence. Arsh, any thoughts? Any questions? Okay. I let me add a few points here. So one of the things I noticed is you can get lost in the details. So quickly, as you write, for example, each activity or each experience, you tend to write a lot of details within it, and then you tend to think of each activity as something independent of each other. So one of the key things I want to everyone to think through is you are applying not with individual positions, but you're applying for a job and a role for a company. So think through the overall structure, like this company needs analytical skills, this company needs problem solving skills, this company needs team leadership skills, it needs someone who has had experience in, say, running certain set of let's say algorithms, right? So these are a bunch of core requirements, right? You should have had some experience dealing with maybe working with teams of people, right? You get that list and ensure that those things are captured through each of your points. So look at it like when you read your resume, it should tell a story, right? If you look through quickly what that resume is trying to convey, you want that story that is relevant for the role to come up. Okay, so don't think of your work experience as discrete bits that do not connect with each other. This is a very common mistake I've seen. People write great descriptions, they write the action words, they write the outcomes, they show a bunch of different bullet points, but they don't add up. They don't add up together. So ensure that your resume always adds up to a story, right? It's a storytelling that you want to tell through your resume. Okay, so remember that. I think that's a key point. Um, I think we want to do a couple of resume evaluations, and I'm not sure how I should do this. Will I be sharing? Should Vinod be sharing, or should Arsh pick up some? Okay, fantastic. Shashwat, is that good? Yeah, Arsh, go ahead. So Vinod is going to share, I think, Shashwat's resume on the screen now, and I'm going to give a
Uh,
live feedback. Is that
okay,
okay?
sir. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Okay. Um, Firstly, fantastic looking resume. So that's I looked at it quickly yesterday. So it's a fantastic looking resume. Yeah, but before I get, can I hear from Shashwat what is the role that he's going to apply for?
Sir, I prepared this particular resume for BCG.
BCG. Okay. And do you know in BCG what you're going to do? Is it going to be
The
a
summer
strategy
associate.
consultant for
Uh,
any specific service?
yeah, most probably consultant as an intern. Summer associate was the job description.
Okay, so fantastic. So thanks for that, Shashwat, for the note. So looking through, right? So firstly, when I look through, leaving the structure of the resume, if I look at each of the experiences, you can see there is a lot of information related to financial modeling, some specific algorithms, for example, Monte Carlo simulation, Grover's algorithm, which is done through bunch of different experiences, right? He has come forward and put them together. Okay, there's a lot of use of the so that's first part. So this person is technical. He has a lot of information related to modeling, related to mathematical models. It's something that I can quickly glean from this resume. Secondly, if you look overall at the structure, it does follow the action words and it has done action, but you can clearly see there are not outcomes that are written. So, for example, if you talk about the first one, right? Let's say the financial modeling for that investment decision making, right? He developed a Excel-based financial model. He analyzed historical data and then did some benchmark against some industry peers, conducted evaluation risk assessments. All these are great work, but what is the outcome, right? So for example, if let me say I am let me give you an example. I have not much of a background in financial modeling. Okay, so if I can say the same things, only thing is I have no outcomes to share. Like I too read, like yesterday I took a book and read for half an hour on a Excel based financial model, and I did let's say I did a pivot table, right? I looked at historical data for 5 minutes, and then I managed to sleep off. And then I say I conducted risk assessments and did nothing with that, right? This from my information and from Shashwat's information, it is not clear who's a good fit here. So, firstly, it is great that Shashwat has captured the work that he has done. The work that he has done is solid. What did he do is very solid, but the outcomes are not clear. I would like to see people who deliver results. So, companies are not organizations that are there to provide moral support or friendly comfort to each other, right? Companies are beasts that are looking for people who deliver results. So every time, every action that you do should necessarily talk about what is the outcome. For example, if in the financial model for the Reliance Industries, right? If he says with this he was able to predict some maybe something else, right? What would be the stock market value, or predict some like 5 month expected. He was able to draw out some inference on how that stocks would prefer to perform over a 6 month period or a year period, and it fit with the data or something of that nature. Or looked at industrial peers and said why that stocks are a much better bet compared to say any other industry, or which should be the directions that Reliance should invest into. Gave a report that would be necessary for Reliance to like diversify their portfolio, would be trying to invest into it, which is shared on LinkedIn, got some 20,000 likes or whatever, right? Conducted a evaluation risk assessment for doing something, right? So it has to benchmark with respect to something, and then we able to deliver some output. Outcome can be that I was able to identify that maybe I don't know, Geo is a high risk investment, but it could be like it could lead to a diversification by leading to some other like investment strategy. I don't know. I'm just throwing out words over there, but point is talk about some clear outcome. I was able to identify something that led to something, right? I was able to write an article, publish something, understand that the stocks are actually low value, and actually predict that the things would behave in a certain way. Those are outcomes that you want to call out. Shashwat, does that make sense?
Yeah, yes, sir. I think I want should have done some quantification of whatever overvaluation or undervaluation was there.
Exactly right. That's exact. So you want to capture. So these roles are necessarily for you to also highlight how you're able to make a impact on the business. Okay, so necessarily quantify it into how you would actually capture the information. So for example, second one in that Monte Carlo simulation, right? So you're able to do a bunch of portfolio optimizations and stuff, but normally they should lead to some outcome. Like either you managed to take care of your portfolio of stocks, or you did some mock investments and able to grow it by 50%, 100%, whatever, right? Write them out such that it's able to capture value. Similarly, for the Grover's algorithm random walk problem that you were able to walk through, you did some algorithms and stuff, but they should be like I was able to implement it for a certain reason and get some outcome. So I don't know how you will capture it, but you should try to find a way in which you're able to like go ahead, implement it somewhere, capture some value. Even if it is like I had 3 users use it and give me feedback, right? That's fantastic, right? So those are the things that you want to capture. So I want to talk a little bit, step out of this and talk about on BCG itself. So there's a bunch of here things that are things here that are necessarily related to investment portfolio and related to risk mitigation. One of the key things for you to think about is, does BCG work in that space, right? I know EY works in that space, right? There is big financial consultancies who work in that space, but BCG, McKinsey tend to be more of a overall general strategy companies. They tend to work on like um, not specifically on finance, but on generally on how do you go ahead look at the different facets of a company to actually change it. So for you, the critical thing would be, Shashwat, if you are targeting BCG, is to ensure that this particular set of work that you're done is not only finance specific, but also talks about how do you go ahead think about it in a larger strategy perspective, right? And strategy means things like how do you look at different streams, how do you look at operations, how do you look at marketing, how do you look at the business value, and how do you go and change it, right? So there can be some things that you can actually go connect these dots for all those things and then present it that way. If you do not, and if you do not look at the job description of BCG, for example, and the roles you have traditionally hired, it will tend to make you more of a financial expert, and therefore might not be a perfect fit for BCG unless you go and modify this. Okay, that's my take on this. This is a fantastic fit if you are doing for, let's say, some of the big financial houses, right? Like if you're going for a consultancy work in, I don't know, what are some of the fin companies? Fin? Kotak Mahindra or someone else, right? EY is a very classic example that I can think of. It would make perfect sense. So definitely modify this to be less purely finance focused and more about a general strategy. Okay. So that's my first call out for you on the overall structure. Then related to the positions and responsibilities, I guess everything you written here is necessary for how the recruitment works in India. So I see a couple of different leadership positions. So I had a interesting call with actually a senior a partner actually with EY, and he was telling me how he looks at the whole hiring scenario within India. So normally when they come for, they identify like maybe 40-50 students who they think are equally fit, and really they're looking for someone with a few strong points, right? Either very strong leadership skills, like through all these the work that you have done, which is also fantastic, or a very high GPA, right? Or a specific work experience that is like shoots them out of the water. So they're looking for someone with a very specific narrow high, right? So they identify 40-50 people of that nature, and then they call them for their based on the interviews, they call them for the interviews, and they really let people shoot themselves in the foot. That is, they don't really care who among the who among the 40 make it to the 5 or the 8 that they select. They don't really care. It is like there will be necessarily people who mess up the interview. They would do things that were a little awkward, or they do things that are not right for a consulting, and they would let them be eliminated themselves. So my point is, your resume has a lot of highs with respect to leadership, and that's a good thing if you're looking for consulting. If you're looking for other roles where it is not necessarily required, then it again is not much value. One of the things I will ask to call out is each of the things again, make some clear actionable like action items that you call out, because there is going to be a lot of other people who are going to compete with also similar credentials, like having leadership skills in a certain way. But make something like instead of having 10 different things that all have like some experience, if there's one thing that you're able to drastically improve, call that out first. Like for example, if you're a joint secretary, right? You say you created a appealing visual design, right? If that led to something, right? Like let's say you're able to increase the turnaround rate, um, you're able to tie up new collaborations, or something of that nature, increase it by 5%, 10%, increase more collaborations, more funding, grew funding by 5%, 20%, whatever, right? If you can
Yes,
capture
sir.
those things, that'll be very critical for you to highlight how impactful a leadership role has been. Okay. Vinod, any thoughts? Okay. Shashwat, any other questions onto what you had?
No, sir.
Okay, cool. But man, I just want to call out. It's a personally, I think it's a fantastic resume. I think there is a lot of awesome work. Like I personally, I like, right, when I'm recruiting. So I recruited I look for engineers. I look for product managers. When I was recruiting for Amazon, I was recruiting for Salesforce. When I was recruiting for HP, right, for my teams. When I grew a team, I actually hire, and I like technical folks. So um, I have not done specifically for consulting, but there are people like me. Like one of my friends actually is a senior manager now with Deloitte, and he specifically looks for people who have technical skills. So if you've done XYZ technologies, he specifically hires those people who have very good grasp on technology and technical work, rather than purely people who just do like, hey, I've done so and so outcomes, right? So again, there's a little bit of a flavor that changes with people, but in general, focus on achievement. I think you've done fantastic work, and that stands out. And I really like the fact that you're able to call those things out. Okay. So good luck with your BCG. Optimize it a little bit for success.
Sure, sir.
Okay. Okay. Sure. Arsh, hey man, uh, good to connect with you again. So let's look through your resume again. Um, man, this is a folks. I just want to call this out. So this is a product manager resume, and I was a director of products at Salesforce, senior PM at Amazon, senior PM at HPE, right? A bunch of places where I hired product managers for my team, right? Including I became a product manager by someone hiring me in all these roles, right? So firstly, I want to call out that a few things here. So this is a product manager resume, and right, Arsh, is that that's a good summary, right? Okay. What is that? Okay. 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 But I want to just call this out. Firstly, I like the resume, right? So I just want to call that out. Firstly, um, okay. So if there has been more changes, that's fantastic. Okay. Why do I like this resume? Let me look at a few things here, right? So first thing first is when I'm hiring for a product manager, I'm looking to see if there are any product manager experiences. So unfortunate reality of life, folks, is that if you are going for a, like say, a role as an engineer, you should have had an experience as an engineer, right? If you're looking for a mechanical engineering role, you should have had mechanical engineering experience. If you're looking for a software engineer, you should have had software engineering experience. If you're looking for a PM, clearly I want you to have PM experience. Okay. So high level as a PM, key things that are on my mind is: do you have PM experience? Do you understand what it is dealing with clients are, having conversations with customers? Do you understand what a difference between a strategy and execution is? Do you understand how to look at benchmarks? Do you understand what are outcomes that you need to deliver? Do you understand some of the roles that a PM does, which is related to, hey, I have to manage without authority, I have to deal with a lot of customers and do a lot of work, and also be the front of the company for designing how the company should go forward, right? It's a bunch of things that a PM does. So firstly, when I look through the resume, looking through quickly, right, it's a product management intern, there is a management consulting intern. Consulting intern is good because again they are client facing roles, so that's good. Okay, there's a bunch of different projects, and I do not like the name that the projects are given. I'll come to that. But if I read through the works, I actually see there is a lot of work that the structure of them is how a product manager would think through, which is looking through what that impact should be, what the outcome should be, looking at how do you like prepare some sort of strategy, or look at some sort of either market research. Like for example, the first one is a strategy, second one is planning and operations, right? Third one, in terms of the projects. So that the bucket of things handles everything together. So I like all these things because they hit on a high level what a PM is supposed to be. Okay. Now let's look through. Before I come to the actual internship work, let's come to the projects. So what don't I like on the project? They actually talk about the work itself, telescope project, right? I would rather talk about the role that you did. So for example, this could be strategy and operations, development for a radio telescope project, right? So financing make my trip is actually good, but I would like to write it as, let's say, uh, it is the same word, but I would write, I would suggest you choose the words like a consulting project for make my trip, right? Because consulting is related to client facing roles. Financing is related to sitting in a bench and then making Excel models that are like away from a customer. Okay. So small word changes that actually convey. Ideally, on the left, on the titles, you should ideally have product manager, product manager, product manager, product manager, product manager, right? That's ideally how it should be, right? If it is not product manager, program management, product management, program management, program management, program management, program management, right? You want to keep repeating that word, right? Um, talk about the roles in that way. Okay, let's talk about this. So firstly, there is a rewriting required because you want to talk about the fact that you had lots of experience, whether it's through small school projects, you had something else, but you want to keep building the fact that you always been a product manager. Okay. Same thing. If you're going to be a consultant, you always want to be talking about consulting experience. If you want to be SD, you want to talk about like software SD experience, SD, right? You want to keep repeating it. Okay. Let's now go to the before I jump into details of projects, let's look into the key things. So order is correct. You always talk about your work experience first. the most impactful on the top, and then lesser impactful ones in that order. Okay, so product manager, I see here that there's a strategy for a revenue increase. There is a onboarding client increase by 20%. So there's outcomes clearly. There's some actions that have been done. I would just my suggestion, Arsh, is that for the product management intern, strategize an increase in revenue. I'll just keep it as a I will define also what those works are, right? Built a like a strategized revenue increase by doing XYZ items, right? Identifying new features is a little vague. Market opportunity is little vague, because that seems like a general term that you just pulled from the job descriptions. I would like some, so just like Shashwat, who put in some details, right? Like he put in certain algorithms, certain simulation techniques, like the Monte Carlo simulation techniques, the random walk problem that he worked through. I would like you to talk about what the features are, like building X feature, right? Because I know you did that work. So I want you to talk that experience. In fact, this is my common suggestion is, instead of writing 5 different things, I would rather that you have like 2 different things that you can talk with some depth, because that allows me to identify how much you have done with respect to that work. So for example, here I would like to have what that new feature is and what that market opportunity is, right? Okay. And then go ahead. I see. So folks, this is a good way to also learn, right? The key things is always remember that each bullet point ideally should have a star format, right? You should talk about what is the situation, what is the task and actions, and what is the outcome, right? All should be there. The action should have details, right? That's a meat. You need to have meat into the creature that you're showcasing. It can't be a skeleton with a good head and a nice tail but no body, right? Right. So but Arsh, I'm saying that as a beginner this is great. Like you said, you 1 year back this was a format. I still think it's a great resume. I just want to highlight the fact that it is necessary to actually write details into it, because people who are like me, not everybody is like me, but a significant portion would like to look at details, because that helps us identify who are the people who have done real work versus people who are just picking up keywords and putting it together. um, so I think I can talk about the similar things for the first one, so add more flesh into it. Similarly for the management consulting intern, right? um, I see a lot of strategy work in both the things, and necessarily because you were applying it for BCG kind of role, I guess. But yeah, I would as a PM, we are hands-on people. So all folks who are interested in a product manager, remember that product manager is hands-on, right? You are actually building and delivering stuff. You are a builder. You are a doer, right? So I would rather have things that are actually given to someone. Like you catch the if you're done the strategy, you ensure that it is given to someone and someone does something from it, right? It was given, like for example, I will give you an example. When I was in Atlanta Community Food Bank at Atlanta, we actually did a strategy for improving their supply chain delivery, basically ensuring that the trucks are routed the right way. So the outcome is not just we did a strategy and did it right. Outcome was that that strategy of rerouting the trucks and delivery and then ensuring that the transportation route was optimized was implemented in the 6-month period after me, right? And it led to like 5% growth or 10% growth, whatever I hear from the CEO, right? Or it led to improvement in their scores. So I don't remember what those numbers are, but it definitely was implemented and there were some outcomes from it. Okay. And if you want to talk about those routes as a PM, you necessarily have to capture that and put that in. Okay. Keep following up. You ensure that you're doers, right? Strategy is great for a consultant. Actions are more important for a PM. Okay. Jumping to the projects, again, see, there is a third line for that radio telescope was that successfully obtained half and full solar transits. Okay, I do not know what that is, but I would like to see. I'm seeing that as something that came out of it, and I would like to get more details of what that is. Okay, So ensure some outcomes come from things. So there is a second one, for example, where Make My Trip implemented a single payment gateway for enhancing user convenience, right? Used hard framework to improve UX. That's very cool, right? I would like to see such outcomes come out, right? If possible, some user statistics too, right? We migrated 100% of the users, 50% of the users. We did some A/B testing with a small sample of users. I would like to see something of that nature. Where did that go out to, right? So that's a key thing I would be looking for. Okay. Yeah, but overall, I hope Arsh, you definitely have heard this from multiple people, but folks on the call, you I hope you understand where the drift is. Numbers are all great. I actually like it that, like, for example, Arsh has been bold, right, to call about 200K. You can see there's a INR 1 million there somewhere over there. There's a 24%, 25. These are bold statements. Uh, do not be worried by bold statements. Remember that the work you are doing is, when you say you're done, is part of the larger group's outcome that you're claiming as an outcome from this experiment, and you're writing it from your perspective. That is, I did XYZ, right? You want to talk about things that you did, but the outcome is necessarily the outcome of the project that you transpired. So necessarily projects will have a big impact because they have a lot of people involved in it. It is understood. Do not worry too much about is that too much of a call out? Yes, if the project was successful, it brought out that things, that numbers, it is fine. I seen Hole Avadut Narendra having a raised hand. Go ahead, man.
Yes, sir. Actually, you just said out something about the title. Like, for example, for the radio telescope project, what
Uh-huh.
title would you like to suggest to mention in the resume?
So if it was a strategy work, right, I would say it's a consultant, right? If it was a consulting role that you have pulled in, you say consultant radio telescope project, right?
And
Or
what if like engineered or something?
what is it?
What if like we designed it? Then what will be like what should be the title?
If you are going as an engineer, say engineer, right? If you're going as a, like a, you're looking, applying for, let's say, engineering roles in, say, let's say, Canon, right? uh, Canon does a lot of camera related work. They do a lot of lithography related work. They look for a lot of lens assembly systems. They look for these complex mechanical systems that use light and bend light and do magic with it, right? So what you want to be is, you want to be an engineer in that space. You want to talk about engineer radio telescopy. That's a fantastic call out, right? And if you apply and then apply for Canon, that'll be perfect, right? Or if you did the software for it, you want to talk about being a software engineer for it, because it's going to be a lot of things. No longer are any of these systems mechanical. They're going to be controlled by through intelligent software systems. And if you're an embedded systems engineer, or if you're a software engineer who wrote the code necessary for whatever, a transformation, device movement, or whatever, right? It's always good to call that out with the scope. So remember, it's a role, not the project name that you need to highlight.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Oh, by the way, I'm very interested. What kind of role are you looking for, man?
Sir, are you asking to me?
Yes, man. To you.
Yes, sir. Core mechanical.
Core mechanical. Perfect. Call out as an engineer.
Yeah,
Design
sure.
engineer, production engineer. These are the things that you want to call out.
Okay, okay. Sir. That got it. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Folks, Vinod and I are open for questions. Please shoot. Just like what I just had now. So please go ahead and ask some questions. Roorkee students are not silent. I know you folks. I see Monica. Monica raising her hand. Please.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
It's so
Hello.
nice to connect to you on this platform. Sir, I am a PhD student and I'm also looking for industry jobs. But the problem that I'm facing is like most of my experience is academic experience. And industry people, I guess, are not very well versed with the academic language. So, how do I deal with this? Like, I want to switch to industry, and how do I start with it?
Monica, which field are you in?
Sir, I am from management studies, and I have done my specialization is in marketing, especially brand brand management. So I'm looking for consultant roles only, especially in the brand strategy making and things like that.
Do you want to be a marketing manager, brand marketing manager, or do you want to be a consultant in that space?
A brand strategist, basically, a consultant for strategy formulation for the
Okay,
brands.
so a few things here. So a consultant. So let me give you a quick example. So firstly, valid question. So it's normally a problem. It's almost like a chicken egg problem, right? It's not just necessarily only for PhD students. For every student, right? Life of a student is, hey, you need experience to get into industry, but you need industry to get that experience, right? It's like a chicken egg problem. Which comes first, right? I keep hearing that common question of how to break this through. So I just want to highlight a few things. So firstly, when I was at Georgia Tech, we had a faculty, right? So few ways you can crack this problem. um, Faculty does consulting projects, right? So for example, I had a faculty who was involved with the Atlanta Community Food Bank and helping them improve their supply chain processes. I got involved with them through the coursework, and therefore started doing the project for them. That became an experience because I was a consultant optimizing something for them. Okay, so that's the first thing you want to do, is you want to explore the directions in which faculty does consulting work and can you be involved in it, right? So Vinod,
Yes,
for example, was involved in some similar work. I know students were involved with when they were at universities in their master's program. They were doing things of that nature. So that's the first part. That's all relevant experience that will be necessary for you. uh, Second part is, I guess, consulting by nature of it is ensuring that you actually do a lot of more reach out. Immediately you might not have success with consulting, but you might want to do parallel work, right? Like for example, it'll be easy to find a role as a brand marketing manager for, let's say, a startup company, right? All startups would need someone to actually strategize on how to grow their brand, how they would actually ensure that they're able to get, like, whatever, right, the next stage of funding to get that kind of customer visibility that they need to get. So I would suggest the next route too, which is, go ahead, reach out to startups, right? More you reach, more you get. Reach out to startups, have the conversations, have like projects that you work as a strategist for them, working on their or their brand strategy or their marketing strategy, right? Sometimes it'll be called a brand strategy, but you'll end up doing product strategy, right, or product marketing. That's fine. What you want to do is, you want to add things in your resume they can talk about. So build a
okay.
resume first, right? Once you have a sufficiently strong resume, then you can start having maybe consulting companies more open to them, because consulting companies are looking for people with client experience. Firstly, it is client experience.
Yes, sir.
Secondly, right, with people who actually fit in all the other requirements, like technical requirements and stuff, which you'll
Like,
anyway gain.
in this regard, I have done like two independent projects as consultant, wherein I worked on the productivity optimization of one of the companies during COVID time. So I led to reduction in the manpower. They were basically facing a manpower problem. And second of my project is related to an AI company which was working on developing a product LLM model for UPSC aspirants. So I've worked on these two projects, but I don't know how to translate that and how to show that particular thing in my CV, because all that thing I've done for a academic purpose. I've written case studies on it, and they've been published in good. Like it has been published in Ivy League schools also. So I don't know how to reflect that in industry terms. So academically, it looks good that it's a case study, but as far as industry is concerned, I am kind
So
of
Monica,
clueless.
I'll handle this question real quick. So when are you finishing? Did you say you're doing a PhD in marketing?
Yes, sir.
When are you finishing?
Sir, I finished it. Like I'm waiting for my convocation.
Okay. So Monica, a couple of things, right? I used to support the product management team at Cisco. So a couple of things, like what I mentioned during the conversation about resumes, optimize your resume for each company. Okay. You have
Okay.
to do that work. Look at the job description, look at skills, make sure that your experiences reflect the skills as in the job description. Okay. That's point number one.
Okay.
Second thing is, do attend a workshop tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit about how to prepare for interviews. Okay. So
So
actually, you can prepare for the interviews well in advance just by looking at the job description. You don't need to wait till the interviews to face the interview questions. You can predict them in advance and prepare. Okay. So that's point two. Third thing I would strongly recommend is use LinkedIn and network aggressively.
okay.
Okay. The problem is Typically companies do not hire PhDs, they only hire undergrads or master's students or MBA students for many positions. They do not hire PhDs in management. That doesn't mean you are a bad candidate or they don't want you. It just means that they don't know who you are or what your specialization, how it will help them. Okay, so you have to make it more comfortable for them. Reach out on LinkedIn, talk to people in that company, let them know you're interested. It's a long game, but build a relationship, right? That's going to be really critical. And just go through these motions: resume prep, interview prep, LinkedIn, talk to professors, get contacts, reach out to other DMS professors situated across other IITs, talk to them, tell them, hey, do you have any references? IIT Research Park, right? Like IIT Madras Research Park. There are lots and lots of startups. A lot of the DOMS faculty is involved in IIT Madras Research Park. So talk to them. So the more you connect, the more contacts you will build, and that's the only way you're going to get in. Like Vibin said, target startups. That's the other way. So these are the ways to go forward. Any other questions?
Yes,
So
sir. Thank
there are a bunch here on the on the section. Yeah. Yeah, I'll go through them, Harsh. But again, specific questions are fine. Like we can have a conversations later to just reach out to us. We can have. But I think Vinod answered most of the things that are necessary for it. Let's talk about there's a very interesting question on the storytelling aspect of the resume. Um, so, guys, I just want you like to think about what's a story, right? Like a story has a head, a tail, and also has a body, right? It flows. It's a journey, right? It talks through your journey. It hooks you in. It has you uh, like rooting for the person involved in it, right? It has a main character. It has challenges. It has things there are actions, there are happenings in it, right? That's a story. So of course a resume cannot be a story. Like you don't write it as a story, right? You don't write I went here, did that. But the point of a resume is, if I tell you a story is let's say let's just give an example. Let's take Sholay, right? The movie. If it had been that guy in prison, um, two people in prison, a couple of dacoits, and everybody came victorious. It'll be like, what's the connect, right? There's three different things. Like, where is the connect, right? There's a heroine somewhere in between too. So how do you connect all these pieces? So that's exactly what I meant when I said storytelling is your resume has parts, right? It has, I worked as a consultant somewhere. Okay, that's one story. That's one part. That's a present part of the life. There are things related to the work that you did, which is a decoy part of the life, right? There's a lot of action happening over there, but it's independent. They don't connect together. But if your resume talks about all these things together in a common theme, which is necessary for a company. For example, as a PM, I should have had ability to lead without having actual reportees. I should have had a lot of client experiences. I should have had ability to talk to customers. That's a PM is a three-dimensional person which has had a lot of challenges and had a lot of experiences. Your resume should talk about those. Like for example, um, worked with engineering, led these things and led to an outcome, right? Talk about maybe the challenges related to the engineering, right? Like irrespective of the deadlines, we able to get these things out and so on so time. That's the meat I was trying to talk about. And to get that kind of meat into your story, you cannot write 10 different points and then get that meat out. You can have one or two points and talk a little bit in depth. Now that's an art, right? I have never seen ever in my life a fantastic resume, right? A perfect resume. It never comes out. You can say a resume is 50% there, 60% there, right? And it's better to be 60% there than 10% there, right? There's not going to be no resume that's going to be 100% out there, right? So that's what I meant by storytelling and how you would actually tie it into one discrete. All these things should flow together. Think of the flow like in a war. It is the overall things that go together, right? Not individual battles that happen, right? It is the complete units that or different pieces. Some units lose, some units win, but overall, what is the story? That's the kind of thing you want to bring out with the resume. Any other thoughts, Vinod?
Guys, the way as a recruiter, the way I would evaluate a resume is I have 5 skills I'm looking for. Okay, as an example, 3 technical skills, 2 people skills. This is what I'm looking for. So when you telling me a story, right, when you're giving me your answers, you should help me say that, okay, the first skill that you've gained it in one internship. Say skill 2, you've gained that under work by working with a professor. Skill 3, you're done through your coursework. The people skill I'm looking for, you've done it through extracurriculars. skill 5, you're going through one more internship, right? So you have to basically cover all of the skills of the job description in your interview process, right? You got to say that this is what, in this internship I learned this skill, right? You make it easier for me to judge that there is a takeaway from you after each experience you have on your resume. And the more I see the connect between your work you did as internships, project assistantships, working under professors, RA, TA, uh, uh, like extracurricular activities, all that should add to something on the job description. The more the link is clear, that is my version of storytelling. Okay, storytelling is not always focused on who you are, your childhood problems, how you overcome. I mean, that's okay, but I am not recruiting for a movie, right? All I want to know is, will you fit my job? That's the only thing I'm looking for. So just be focused on the job description, read the job description, highlight what they want. Always give your answers not based on how awesome you are or what you bring to the table. It is less important. What is more important is, how does it match what the recruiter wants? It's not about you, it's more about the company. So if you have that perspective, then you can tell good stories. Okay, so that's the way I will leave the conversation.
There's one other question on how to make things ATS friendly. So again, the same things. There is going to be a job description. There's going to be a bunch of keywords, right? You first identify the skills onto the 3 categories that Vinod showed. Identify those keywords that are there, and ensure that your resume brings those out in it. So what do I mean? Like when I looked at Arsh resume, I was calling out that hey, there are keywords here. There are a lot of key points, right? But not necessarily talking about uh, the details of how that work needs to be written. So ATS friendly, purely ATS friendly is getting those keywords onto your resume and then putting it all together. That's fine. But once it goes through the ATS screening, someone will actually read it, right? And you want to have a little bit more meat to it. So ensure that one, you identify those key skills into the 3 categories. Identify those couple of key words that you want to put based on those skills, and incorporate them into your resume, but ensure that one, it fits overall the narrative. Secondly, there are meat to talk to and not just the keywords in it. And that's my take on it. Thought, Vinod?
Yeah, guys. I mean, ATS is pretty easy to do it. Just pick up words from the job description, put it on your resume. But I'm saying do it with care, because ultimately you also need to add content, right? It's not just about the ATS words. It's also the fact that you have to make it the star format. What did you do? What are your actions? What was the result metric? All that has to be there. So if you do it the right way, do a little bit of ATS, do a little bit of star format, that look excellent. So let's stop there. Let's move on to Radhika, and then I'll come to you, Gaurav. Okay. First, I'll finish Radhika's question. So, what all do we do in the description of core projects? Hey, any bullet point, right? You have to write in bullet points, Radhika, for the core projects. And when you write in bullet points, you need to begin with action verb, talk about your actions, and talk about the impact in terms of results. So use that model, and like make sure that you're talking not just about what we did, what the project did, but recruiters care about what you did. Use the word I more often when you talk. You cannot use the word I on your resume. By the way, that's a red flag. Okay, to use the word I on your resume. So always begin with action verb, but always focus on where was your value. What did you do? How did you contribute? Right? Focus on your contribution, and that'll make it a solid resume. Let me finish this and I'll leave it to you, Vibin. So, should it also include the skills developed learnings during the project separately, or should we keep it results specific, like conducted, using, achieved? Hey, any skills developed, anything you learn from your friends, you can even sometimes take a little bit of extra credit for what others did. That's all okay. But remember that end of the day, right? Even when you're taking extra credit, you should be able to validate it. You should be able to convince the recruiter that you learned something and you did that work, right? So you should be a good storyteller at the end of the day. Uh, it's all about how confident you are. If you feel that you're not done some work, don't claim credit for it. Okay, just you should feel comfortable with whatever you put on your resume. Every word on your resume counts and you'll be taken very seriously. So don't put something on your resume and then say, no sir, I didn't do that work. Right, that looked very bad. So whatever you put, you should be able to substantiate, and you should be able to defend it completely. Even if I pick up lots and lots of questions, I keep asking why, right? Should not get flabbergasted. You should be able to comfortably answer it. Learning, should we keep it results specific? Absolutely. You have to end with results, you have to end with metrics. Vibin, any thoughts?
I also guess the question is, what if there are failures? If I'm reading it right, if there are failures, things did not happen, right? I think that's a result too, right? result doesn't necessarily have to be like things worked out great. For example, it can't be like it failed spectacularly and like the whole thing crashed, right? That's not a result. There's no learning from it. Nothing is clear. Like for example, I when I launched features, right, we didn't meet the deadline, right? We launched it months later than the expected deadline. But we can say we launched the feature, it with despite being 2 3 months later than what was originally planned, right? But when we talk about like to actually help the transition or the help customer expectations, we kept a lot of customer meetings to ensure that kind of a transition. We also did some sort of like learnings document that actually talked about where was the cause of the failure, right? Or how do we go improve it. I think those are key things to get. So results can be that, hey, it didn't work out the way it is. I would like to see outcomes, of course, from a thing. Not necessarily that every project is successful, right? Failure doesn't mean crash and burn and then hide in the sand. Failure means it did not meet the original plan, but there still was outcome. It delivered something and there was some learning from it. You'll have to capture that and put it in. In terms of what I would try and present, I would always talk about the highs, because you have like 5 minutes or maybe like not 5 minutes. You have like 10 20 seconds to grab a person's attention. You want to bring out the best qualities first rather than bring out a bunch of pessimistic failures of your life, right? It is good, but it may not be. If you think over a project, maybe there are other things that you want to highlight that is maybe more relevant. um, I would necessarily add that if someone specifically over interview asks you, hey, tell me a time in your failure and how you grew over it, right? I would keep those stories for there. If possible, keep all the highs in your resume. um, if there are only lows in your resume, present them such that it is not so much of a low and there is some gain from it. Okay. I Yeah, there
There
was
was someone who asked a question. I think it was Jane. Is he
Gaurav.
still there?
It was Gaurav with the hands raised. Gaurav Jain. Okay. Okay, let's move on, because if he's here, I'm ready to we are ready to we are happily ready to answer his questions. But there's a question here from Umar. He says, what if a project cannot be evaluated through metrics? There is never a project that cannot be if there is such a project, you should not be doing such a project where there's no metrics. So imagine, right, if you guys wanted to build a house.
Guys, hold on. Guys, if you have gotten a project where there's no metrics, I will go and fire that manager. Okay. Who has
Exactly.
given you such a project where you cannot be tracked? Okay. This is impossible. There's no project in any company which is given without metrics.
Actually, that is a hellhole, guys. Like if you wanted to torture someone, right? It is a project where there are no metrics and no evaluations, because you can be like screwed over for everything. In fact, that is a common thing in consulting. As it's a thing called "Find Me the Stone." I don't know if you guys know about it, but it is a hazing ritual where you say "Find me the stone," and you bring a stone over, and the manager says that is not the stone, right? It is a life of finding random stones and then bringing it over to be rejected again and again and again, wondering what happened. Right? There's no outcome, there's no feedback, there's no measure of things that needs to happen. So no project should be there that has no outcomes. Even if I did something at home, let's say I made food, right? The outcome is you ate it and you quenched your hunger, or it was so bad that you threw it off and then you ordered on Swiggy, right? There's some outcome from anything in life. If it is not an outcome, if you just made food and that's it, right? It can't be that case. So find out what is that can be. So it might be that you're not aware. So there it commonly, so going a little bit more serious into it, that normally what happens is engineering life is like you're told to do something, and then like, hey, go design me this widget, right? And that's it. Like you guys just do a widget, right? But don't be the guy who just does a widget and forgets, right? You should be someone who finds out why was the widget being used. If you have done such things, at least go forward in future and ask, what is a widget, what happened with it. Be curious. That kind of also kind of tells you that you want to learn more, you want to understand where this all fits in, what is the outcome from it. And that's something you want to like keep track of. So you might have done projects in which you built a widget not knowing what it was used for, because you just wanted to like build a bunch of like you just had to do something and you did something. but don't be that forever. Find out if you have projects like that, try to connect back to the team that you did the project with, try to identify what came out of it, right? What is the outcome, and then you can add that as a metric for your projects. Okay. Talk about CV and a resume. Okay.
Yes, I'll just take that earlier question once again. So some computer science students come to us saying, okay, I wrote some lines of code. Now, how can I give it a metric? Okay. Hey, think hard. So when you're writing lines of code, compared to the previous line of code, is it more efficient? Is there lesser debugging problems? Is there lesser bugs? Is it more consuming less memory? Is it consuming less server capacity? There are 10 ways to measure how good a code you've written. Okay, so don't say that just because you're writing code is it just exactly the same as what the earlier person did. If that was the case, then they will not have given you the code. If it's exactly the same as what the previous person did, right? It has to be better in some way. So you have to now give me a number to say how good your code was and how you measured it. So using all the metrics I mentioned just now, there's easy ways for you to tell how it was better than everyone else and how there's a metric going to be linked to it. Okay, let's move on to the next question.
Difference between CV and resume. Folks are really, CV is used for more academic settings. Like for example, you're applying for a like a PhD, going to be a PhD under a professor. You're looking for an assistant professor role, right? So slightly different format where you talk about publications, you talk about like a bunch of research projects you've done, where you're less worried about outcomes rather than technologies and methodologies, right? I wouldn't say not worried about outcomes. Outcomes are a little bit more high level rather than 20% to 30%. They are more at a high level of raised certain grants to actually write a proposal for a certain thing, NSF grants, whatever, right? CSIR grants, or whatever those are. Right, it could be things related to developing certain technologies and then filing for patents. Those are the kind of outcomes that you want to talk about there. You want to talk about list of publications. So CV normally runs. It runs over for a couple of pages. Really depends upon the kind of quality of work you've done. So if you have like there are people who publish, I hear like 100 papers in a year. Okay, there are assistant professors who do that kind of work. Okay, it leads you to wonder what kind of papers these people are publishing, but the kind of volume cannot be accommodated in one page, so you'll have to write a lot of things down. So that's the kind of difference. Resume is clearly industry oriented, less than 10 years of experience, one pager, right? If you are applying for let's say VP of a company, you probably need you have like 20 years, 30 years of experience, you probably need 2 pages. But normally at that stage, you're not really being hired for your resume. You are actually being you're hired. Someone actually reaches a headhunter. Your networks actually reach out to you. Your resume kind of becomes useless after 15, 20 years of experience. So resume should ideally be one pager. So I think that's a key take between CV and resume.
The other thing I'll say is that resume is going to be one page, but maybe some of you have more content to share than just one page. So highly recommend that you create your LinkedIn profile and put up all the additional stuff on LinkedIn. So most recruiters nowadays look at both your resume and at your LinkedIn profile. So make sure that your LinkedIn is updated and has all the information, but your resume has to be compact. So cut down, make it one page, keep it crisp, and keep only the important things on your resume, not everything you have done.
Adding on one other point is, so I had this trouble too, right? Like I've been in your shoes. I think every one of us goes through this problem, right? We have done a lot of projects, we've done a lot of internships that can be all over, right? As a student, we do, like I had done a bunch of consulting internships, bunch of projects that are done with the different faculty, a bunch of different things all add up together. So if you add your resume, it seems like tons of different stuff, and you kind of like are like, why should I remove everything, right? Why should I remove anything? Like I did work into this, let me showcase. But just think from the other side, right? If I am looking for a product manager and I see some marketing projects, something related to consulting projects, something related to strategy, it's all I it doesn't make any sense to me of where this guy is, right? He's all over, right? It's great that he has done a lot of work. He at least shows he's a very enthusiastic person doing a lot of work, but it's difficult for that role specific things which are related to keywords in the job descriptions, right? So those specific skills in the job descriptions are not being captured through a resume that is kind of like spread all over. So I would rather you have two experiences that are relevant and talk in detail of what you've done rather than like 1,000 different things that are all over, right? and that really is a reason why sometimes it's difficult to cut down. So for consulting things, people add project management experience, product manager experience, operations experience, right? um, that's great, but it is not required for a consulting role. Similarly, for a core engineering role, you would have done things related to consulting, things related to, I don't know, school projects. They're not necessary for that work. So if you think over the job description again, the key skills required, you can then find those key things within your experience that you want to highlight, and only those need to be on a resume, which is a one pager. So how much can you capture in one page, and how that is actually the amount of time that a interview recruiter has to actually scan. So they're going to spend 10 seconds. If you write a million things, they're going to not find it. If you write a few things but write it well, they will it'll immediately capture their attention. And that's a way to actually cut down your resume to something more meaningful and useful.
So there are 17 people on this call, and I think we'll probably not be able to evaluate every single resume. So why don't we do it this way? So why don't we'll send you the self-evaluation form very soon. So do your self-evaluations, and if that is not enough, maybe we can set up one more follow-up call later on next week or a week later. Uh, and in case you guys don't want to show your resume in front of this group, you want to have more of a one-to-one conversation, just email me. We'll try to see if we can work out a time to discuss. Hope that works for everyone.
Sir, one request. Can we get the slides for the session?
Yeah, definitely. I'll send it over to you, and I'll also put it up on my WhatsApp group.
Thank you, sir.
One more thing, I think it might be useful for folks over here is uh, see, a perfect resume will never happen. See that you actually work towards a good resume, right? Do not stress yourself out into trying to build the most awesome resume. Okay. And secondly, that be little wise on why you need that resume, right? Like for example, if I am applying for a let's take the case when I was at IIT Madras, Tata Motors came over. They were looking for metallurgy students to actually hire them. They were looking for 3 positions, and 2 people sat for the interview, right? This is back in 2006. You really don't need a like optimized resume to actually sit in that where there are three roles for 2 people. Like anyone who sat would get an offer. Like unless you're really like screw yourself over, right? you do you do something really obnoxious, you will be selected, right? So think in those line of where is that you are applying and what is your competition, right? So I know that Amex came over with 800 people applying for that 1 p.m. role, right? There you need a resume, right? You need a resume that actually stands out. So if your competition is really, really, really tight, then you need to work more and more onto that perfection. Like all consulting roles normally have like a lot of people applying, right? So you need to have a better fit, right? For roles where there are like even if there are like 2 roles and there are 10 people apply, right? The filtration is not gonna be through, hey, I'm gonna reject these resumes out. As long as the resume is like somewhere there, right? 50% of the way in, it'll be there. Do not have a very bad resume. The worst thing you can do is have like a screwed up resume for a job, right? Where it is like even better that you didn't even apply with the resume, because just being your department, they would actually call you in, but seeing the resume, it actually ruined your chances, right? Don't do that, right? By making your resume pull you down, right? If the worst thing that can happen is you have a resume that ensures that you will not, where you should get in, you will not get in. Okay. uh, the best thing that can happen is a perfect resume that fits in, but that's lots and lots of effort. But you'll have a lot of things, other things to do too. So be wise in how you spend your time, right? You'll have a lot of preparations to do. Maybe some of you have CAT preparations, UPSC prep, other things too. So you have to make a call on how much time you want to spend and how much energy you want to spend with respect to everything else. So again, storytelling, big picture, not don't be narrowly focused on one. Resume, networking, doing everything, your academic work, doing your other exams, other things, all come in life, internships, everything else come in life. So be wise on how you would spend your time. But when you spend time, ensure that it's useful to you. Okay, I'll stop there.
Anything else, folks, or shall we wind up? Cheers, everyone. Thank you.
Yes, folks. Thank you so much.